joined today by Keith Coughlan, Managing Director of European Metals. Keith, thanks for your time.
No problem, David. Thanks for having me.
Firstly, can you provide some background to EMH and, more importantly, the Cinebeck project?
Sure. So European Metals acquired the Cinebeck project back in early 2014. Since then, we've conducted a lot of work in bringing the then JORC resource into modern day JORC classification, working on the flow sheet, developing a very robust flow sheet. We've concluded a scoping study and 2 preliminary feasibility studies on the project, and we're about halfway through our definitive feasibility study at the moment. So Cinebeck is developing into a very good project. I believe the foremost lithium project in Europe, given its size, its location, cost profile, its ESG credentials, and its near-term production.
What makes it so unique in terms of location?
Well, it's completely surrounded by battery makers and car makers. You know, within about 500 miles of the project, there's some 6 million vehicles made every year. And obviously every year that goes by now, more and more of those vehicles are being made electric. We saw Europe overtake China in terms of EV production at various stages of last year. The demand growth in Europe for electric vehicles is going to grow dramatically, probably larger than anywhere else in the world for the foreseeable future, and so therefore the demand for lithium will mirror that.
Cinebeck is shaping up to be one of the largest, if not the largest, hard rock lithium projects in Europe. A project of this size requires a big partner, a really strategic partner. Your partners, CHES, why are they so important to this project?
Well, you're right, it does require a big partner, and ideally a partner who is very strong financially, someone who understands the industry, the sector in which we're operating, someone who has very good relationships and connections, you know, in the region. And CHES ticks all of those boxes for us. You know, they are the Czech national power utility. You know, they've been operating in country for many, many decades. They're a publicly listed company with a market capitalisation of about 13 billion euros, so they're very large, big balance sheet. They are 70% owned by the Czech Government, which clearly forms very good relationships in country, and their own green energy credentials are very strong. They own a number of wind farms. They own all of the electric vehicle charging stations throughout the Czech Republic, and they have stated goals to build battery factories in the region.
EU are very supportive of the battery industry and the EV industry in Europe. Why is that, and what sort of support are they offering?
So the EU is fully committed to green energy, fully committed to an electric vehicle future, and fully committed to the battery industry and the critical raw materials that go into those batteries wherever they can be developed within the region. And I think that is without question. You know, there's been significant financial commitment, a 550 billion euro fund created last year. There's also legislative support, policy and what have you in terms of the phasing out of internal combustion engine cars, in terms of subsidies for buying EVs, etc. So I don't think that the EU's commitment to this industry is in any question. It is very important because, you know, to develop a big project, as we discussed earlier, it requires a lot of parts. It requires the support in Brussels. We deal with one of the EU bodies called the European Institute of Innovation and Technology, who are the principal facilitator of the European Battery Alliance, and their support for us is along the lines of assisting with financing. So that's helping us apply for grants from the EU, helping us get what you might call soft debt through the various mechanisms within Europe, you know, export credit finance, supported loans, etc., as well as commercial debt. They also are assisting us in conversations with off-takers in the region, and also in terms of permitting and messaging.
Seems every other day there's a discussion or an announcement regarding a gigafactory, a planned gigafactory, or the development of further gigafactories in Europe. What does this mean and look like for European lithium as in the industry, but more importantly for Cinebeck lithium?
So, I believe that the growth in demand for lithium is going to grow as quickly in Europe as anywhere else in the world for the foreseeable future, and that's because it's coming from such a low base. There is no supply of lithium or battery grade lithium in Europe whatsoever currently. So demand figures vary, but if you look at the general consensus, at 2030 there's going to be a requirement for about 300,000 tonnes of LCE, lithium carbonate equivalent, in Europe with zero current production, and a stated aim by the EU to want to be 80% lithium self-sufficient, which is a very, very big ambition. We look at Volkswagen, for example, one company with plans to build 6 gigafactories, requiring a total of about 200,000 tonnes LCE. So that gives you some idea of what the demand side looks like. The supply side simply can't react quickly enough. There is not this sort of supply in Europe. Certainly there's not this sort of supply in any sort of advanced stage of development. So, you know, the demand and supply equation, I think, is very much in favour of us producing in country.
Just touching on the Cinebeck project and that demand supply issue that's coming up, where does Cinebeck sit in the European lithium space, and how advanced is Cinebeck compared to other projects in the region?
Well, Cinebeck is by far the largest hard rock lithium resource in the EU, and that's important for a couple of reasons. It goes to long-term security of supply first and foremost, but it also means that we do get support and attention and what have you. It's also very advantageous to us that it's a historic mine. You know, ESG considerations are very, very important. Re-entering a historic mine is clearly a lot easier to permit, a lot easier to get the support of the populace to develop that rather than breaking new ground. So all of those things are very important to us. You know, I believe we will be the first project within the EU to produce battery grade lithium chemicals in Europe for the European market.
Shareholders are always very keen to get an understanding of Offtake and how Offtake evolves for a project such as Cinebeck and others. When do these discussions start to occur, and what does an Offtake partner look for when evaluating the Cinebeck project?
So Offtake discussions have begun. It's a long process. Offtake agreements for battery grade chemicals it's a complicated discussion. You know, we're not talking about offtake for spodumene concentrate, for example, which is a more simple end product to negotiate with. So these conversations are ongoing. We're talking with a number of people, all the sort of people you would expect we'd be talking to, battery makers and car makers. The way the demand supply equation is unfolding, I think those conversations will gather some momentum. In terms of what an end user, what an off-taker is looking for, they're looking for security of supply, for long-term security of supply, volume, from a project with good ESG credentials, low emissions profile. That's becoming more and more important. They're also starting to look for price mitigation risk, you know, given that it would appear that the lithium price is going to continue to increase. They are looking to try and mitigate that price risk. That one's a little harder to deliver on.
How does tin play into this story? You've obviously got a significant tin resource as well.
Yes, well, Cinebeck is a historic tin mine. The tin content in the JORC resource is about 260,000 tonnes, so it's a very, very large undeveloped tin resource. We treat the tin as a byproduct credit, so we basically use it to, if you like, reduce the cost of production of our lithium hydroxide, and it has a significant effect. In the PFS that we concluded 2 years ago, with tin at $22,500 a tonne, it had the effect of reducing our cost of production from just under $5,000 US a tonne of hydroxide to just under $3,500 US a tonne of hydroxide. It's now 50% higher in price, the tin price, than it was at that point, so it's obviously going to continue to have an increasingly important impact on our project, on the finances of our project.
You touched on the Czech Government and their plans, and particularly through their ownership of CHES. Has the Czech Government come out with any plans or thoughts in relation to the EV market, the battery market, or gigafactories of their own?
Well, they have, and this is something we're seeing happening now with increasing frequency. Articles within the Czech press, which, you know, at this point in time are articles, nothing formal. But, you know, I was reading an article as recently as yesterday talking about a proposed joint venture between CHES the Czech Government and in fact VW Skoda to build a battery factory in fact at a site about 50 kilometres from our project, so clearly something close by. And it makes sense. The automotive industry in the Czech Republic is very important. It accounts for about 10% of GDP. It's a very parochial industry, it's a big employer. The Skoda is still considered to be the Czech car, and the Czech Prime Minister has previously stated that he would like to see Czech lithium in Czech cars, so it makes sense. As I say, there's nothing formal that I'm aware of. European Metals is not a party to those discussions, but clearly it would be advantageous for the project if that joint venture were to proceed.
And does CHES have any other suppliers of lithium?
No, this is their only involvement in the lithium industry.
Now moving forward to Cinebeck and how this project evolves, what are the stages to get this project into development, and what are some of the markers that shareholders should be looking for?
So as I mentioned earlier, we're about halfway through our definitive feasibility study, which will conclude early next year. We'll move very quickly to a final investment decision, and we would hope to be in construction shortly after that. We expect about 18 months of construction, so with the plant completed and commissioning Q2, Q3 of 2023. By the time you've commissioned and ramped up and whatever, we would hope to be delivering battery-grade lithium chemicals into the European market early in 2024.
A big project with a big partner. Exciting times ahead for European Metals. Keith, thanks for your time.
Thanks very much, David. Appreciate it.